The Burrows of Berea is a conversational podcast. We study the Bible and we talk about it.
Not all of us are of the same faith, and one of us doesn't actually have a faith.
And that's wonderful. We all love one another, and we're going to continue to talk about these things.
The things we believe in and the things we believe about what we read in the Bible. Not all of these are necessarily true. Some of it is opinion and speculation. Thank you for
listening and speculating with us.
There you go. That was good. Yes.
You are listening to the Burrows of Berea.
You are listening to Dr. Sam Frost Fridays. All right, well, welcome back to the Burrows of Berea. I am Rick Welch, and to my left is Big Daddy Carter.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sultry.
Behind the glass is Rocket Man Andy Bishop. To my right, Sarita the Edge Edgerton.
Hey, y'all.
Yeah, so guys, we are back in the studio with Dr. Sam Frost. Thank you for being here, Dr. Frost.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And we don't have Cherry. I hadn't mentioned this. I don't know why. We don't have Cherry. We don't have Ralph. We don't have Billy.
It's almost like a skeleton crew.
Yeah, we don't have Tiziana. And so it's just us in the studio today. And this is going to last, I don't know. We're going to record all day. So there's going to be several episodes to go here. And so, you know, in the first, it was a testimony, and then the last one, we talked about infinity versus eternal versus everlasting versus all of that.
Interesting technical discussion.
The beauty of it is that we've actually solved the problem of infinity now.
Oh, we're so
along
good at
with
solving,
racism.
I know,
and all of the other problems of the world.
We've pretty much solved them all.
So
it's
that's
funny.
good.
And yet people don't institute our and things just continue on as they are, as if we didn't solve all of these great problems.
Right.
It's amazing how Giraffe Studios makes all that happen.
It does.
It
right
does.
here
It's really,
in beautiful Hendersonville, North Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
Big Daddy Carter. The only reason I call him Big Daddy is because Tiziana said,
How did
what do
you
you want me
get
to call
that?
me, Daddy? What do you want me to call you, Daddy?
Boy.
Do I have to call him Daddy?
You do, Big Daddy Carter.
Man.
It's
Yeah.
a rule. I'm sorry.
I don't call him that.
Well, if you ever liked rap or if you ever liked music, Big Daddy Kane, you know, Big Daddy
There's
Carter.
a lot of daddies in rap. Yeah.
And then what was that?
Right.
Who wrote the album, The Carter? What was it? The Carter. What was who did, it? Was
Are you talking about that Drake album? Is that Drake?
wasn't it something The Carter? Was that wasn't
There's
Kanye?
a Christian
Was it?
group called isn't that Christian
Big
group?
Daddy Weave.
Yes, Big Daddy Weave.
Big Daddy Weave was the Christian group. Yeah.
Yes.
There was something about The Carter. Some album about The Carter. Who was that?
Jimmy the Carter.
June Carter Cash?
No? Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Lil Wayne.
Lil Wayne.
Well, I didn't know that, which is a thing I should
That's
sort
so
of know.
surprising
just 'cause it's Wayne.
Yeah.
And Wayne is like, a lot of people think he's.
What was it
like
called? What was the name of the album?
The Carter.
The Carter. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. So, all right, let's jump back
There's
into
a lot
this.
of bigs and lils in rap.
Yes.
There is.
Yeah.
You don't ever hear
A lot
like
of lils and
there's no
bigs.
mediums. Somebody needs to come up and like
Medium Rick.
Just like, yeah, I think just Wayne, medium Wayne. That's the
Just
perfect
medium
name.
Wayne.
medium what?
Yeah.
Medium Rick. I haven't
halfway
been in a
rank.
medium since I was 12.
A schmedium.
Anyway, so Dr. Frost, let's start off this episode. What are you thinking?
The medium thing. MED. I mean, you could come up with all kinds of stuff.
That's
The
right.
punchline.
MED.
Medium. So-
Medium.
Smart.
From your personal view, from what you've studied in the scriptures, okay? Despite any eschatological view or whatever, what is your understanding of what the future holds after the resurrection?
Oh, there. Well, Randy Alcorn has a great book called Heaven. There's several other ones, but that one's a big one that footnotes all the other ones. So Randy Alcorn's work is good. So it'll be this creation without corruption, without sin, without death, temptation, without any of those kinds of things. It'll be with animals and trees and creation and all the rest of it. It will just be glorious, absolutely glorious. So we can describe it in what limited means that we can describe these kinds of things without fully exhausting it. I don't know because I haven't experienced. But I know creation, and I know that earth was made for man and not man for earth. So there was a reason why God made creation and then made man and put man on it. And we're so, as I'm seeing there with cats and all the animals we're so in tune. We love creation. We love animals. We love trees. We love we love nature. We love creeks. We love streams. We love it. It's in us. It's wired in us. And so that has to be a part of consummation. And we're made of the dust of the dirt, and we like dirt. We love dirt. We like soil. And Jesus incarnated dirt. He became dirt for us. So it has to be in the consummation of the story. Now the Gnostics did not believe that. They separated off substance from matter, or matter and substance off from that which is spiritual. They made a radical divide between the two so that the two never collide. The furthest form you had of that is Doceticism, where Jesus only appeared to be flesh, but he wasn't. They couldn't envision that Jesus was actually take on something so corrupt as materiality. But we as Christians affirm materiality, creation. This is creation. And in incarnation, Jesus affirmed that, God affirmed that too. He became flesh. He became material and tangible. So that's an affirmation to us that I'm not done with creation. I'm not finished with you yet. This is not going to be forever. This will come to consummation, and this will come to end.
So,
and in that we take hope, because it alleviates if we see Jesus and him raised from the dead, a human being, and he's been exalted, and now body and soul is in heaven, that gives us and alleviates that, that's the crime and the sin and the misery that we see is not the last word. This will be alleviated. So that gives us hope and inspires us to work towards alleviating these things. So orphanages and hospitals. And so, because we know the destiny of the future is a complete alleviation, a total alleviation. So Christian social activity is rooted towards its hope of that which is destined, which is complete alleviation. If that's the case, then my motivation is, what alleviation can I bring to you and you and you and you now, right now?
I love what you said.
So they're connected. See, it's just connected.
I like what you said, sort of in our break time, and people weren't privy to it, but you were talking about the local church and wishing that churches concentrated more on their local communities, because there is such a mission field, especially in America of today, a mission field within our own communities. I like that you said that, and that's sort of what I focus on. I mean,
as a teacher, you're a teacher.
I'm a homeschool teacher, so I have
teachers are teachers.
But I have, I could go to the State House and I could go to the federal buildings in Washington and speak on pro-life issues. But my heart is at the local pregnancy center.
Yeah, exactly.
Weekly going in there and talking to women who are in the impossible situation I found myself in. And so, it's funny, when I started looking into to preterism and I kept hearing, why are you rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic? I kept hearing that, though I had never heard that in a church. I know that,
right.
Was it John MacArthur? Somebody said, I'm not sure which major pastor said that. Who was it that said that? That said
MacArthur
it often.
could have said something
probably
along those lines.
Every church that and I only became a Christian at 25, so I've been about half my life now. But I've never heard that. And my local church is feeding the community. Every church I've ever been a part of was outreach in the local community, helping out at food banks, foster care. Our church is really into having foster care and supporting ministries that support local foster families. And so I just had never heard that. So I like that you said that, and our listeners wouldn't have been privy to that particular conversation. And being a part of the church, the Bible's pretty clear. You cannot forsake being part of the church, even if you don't necessarily believe everything that comes out of the pastor's mouth. If you are a believer, you're supposed to gather with other believers. In whatever church, I guess that looks like. It doesn't have to have the same structure
I don't
as
care what
First
church you go
Baptist
to,
Atlanta or First Presbyterian of Hendersonville. But you must meet with fellow believers, and serve the community. I think that's something you said. So I was kind of giving you a little time to.
The whole, so let's talk about that world for just a moment. The new heaven and new earth. Okay. So there is this time in the future where there will be the animals and the trees and the creation and all of the things that God made.
Good things.
Yes. Will the animals be procreating?
I was saying that I don't. How did God make the moon? I don't know.
No.
ask
I'm just
him.
asking based
don't
on
know.
creation. So when he first made the animals, he said, "Go, be fruitful and multiply."
Which is it's interesting because people, why didn't he begin with just Jesus? Why wouldn't he make Jesus as Adam in the first and begin? Well, Jesus, there's no. How do you procreate after your perfection? Perfection doesn't need procreation. So imperfection, however, does. Replication.
Understood. I'm just. This is a philosophical
So when you're in
question. I'm not
perfection,
going to
you
hold
wouldn't
you to
need-
any kind of
Yeah.
theological thing.
I would
This is a
say no. There
philosophical-
would not be any procreation.
So the
within
animals that he chooses to be there will be the animals that we see and know, and that's just what it'll be.
what
And
it'll
that
be.
will also be the same for every human that he's
right.
elected.
No more death. No
There
more
will be no
procreation,
more-
No need for it.
It will only be what it is,
Right.
and that will last.
Eternally.
And eternally, that is the definition that we talked about in the second episode, was that
A quality of
it is in his infinite wisdom or his eternal wisdom, and all of these things will consist and maintain in this creation that he has made according to his timing, which is forever. And that's
or the Father is referred to it as an eternal beatitude, a state of beatitude.
Mhm.
We're not dominated by a time. So we're so dominate. We're so limited. Go back to the philosophy of Ludwig Leibniz. Our knowledge is so we're so limited in our knowledge, and we're so bound and slave. We're slave to time. We're slave to age. We're slave to culture where you're born. You didn't choose any of these things.
Mhm.
It is what it is. These things are thrown at you. So, and you have to adjust to them and make sense of them.
Mhm.
So none of those types of restrictions will exist.
Mhm.
So we're free. How big is the cosmos or cosmoi? We can make it plural. We haven't even tapped as the Webb,
James T. Webb Telescope.
as that's showing. We've not even dented. I mean, how far does this go? How much is out there? Well, that's ours to explore, to know.
Mhm.
Who has known what God has for those who love him and stay faithful to him? So our knowledge now, if we try to picture that in terms of our framework now, it's, you're not even denting. And what that does to me is, it's interesting because every view has this. Every religion, every ancient times, East Eurasian, it doesn't matter where you go. They all have this idea of a teleology. Even Karl Marx has a utopian. We all want a better place to live in, equal justice for all, equity for everyone. Where does this come? Why? Lions don't walk around worrying about equity for the bears.
Mhm.
They just don't. It's not. They just are concerned of their pride, and
Some
that's
would
it.
say that we're different
You know?
than animals.
Yeah.
Maybe we aren't. Maybe we think
Now
we
you're
are.
talking Andy's language.
Maybe we're not. There was an excellent
I
book.
still think we're smarter.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Maybe not better.
I'm not smarter than all of them.
What, animals?
Yeah, just smarter.
By the way,
they have higher acuity in terms of like nose or ear, hearing, or
Rick, what did the one whale say to the other whale?
Well, how we doing today?
he asked me that question, and I went,
That
That
was
sounds like
incredibly-
that
in my
sounds like
head.
Chewy.
they're incredibly smart. They're incredibly smart. We're talking about animals, but so
And we like animals.
so granted, yeah, I think that that's true about every religion and every
Where did that come from? And Ecclesiastes says this in chapter 3. Eternity is in the heart of man, and he wishes, but it's beyond his finding out. For God is from beginning to end.
right.
It's in us. It's the image of God in us. And so to say that, again, getting back to it, that this has no consummation to it is just a big letdown. It's like a Stephen King novel, and the last chapter's ripped out of it.
Oh my
You're like,
God! So much truth in that sentence.
Yeah.
I thought
big
you meant
letdown.
with the last chapters
Oh,
in,
yeah.
because that's how I feel
Stephen
about Stephen
King-
King.
Yeah, his writing now is a letdown, but
His
his earlier stuff was
amazing writer never quite knows how to end a book.
right.
Or a sentence,
Actually,
run
he
on
doesn't.
sentence for days.
Oh, you're
Well,
talking to the
doesn't.
wrong person.
The
I'm good at
grammarian
that.
in me, I was like, ugh,
Well, I
He
mean,
has long sentences.
I will say that
One
his
paragraph.
novellas,
one sentence.
his novellas are incredible. Like Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption, that was a great novella. The Body, that was a great. Those were good. But anyway, so with this in mind, with what you're saying, now let's bring it back into the theological world versus philosophical world. Okay, I mean, I know that
The two go hand in hand.
they do, but well, when we were talking about like procreation was something that was in the initial order of God with creation, and
Yeah.
I don't read in the Bible where he says that that is a temporary thing. I see that as being his initial creation, which was good.
Right.
And then when he finished and
Well,
had the-
Jesus says in the resurrection there shall be neither male nor female nor giving a marriage, or so he puts it in. That's a clear.
yeah, for
clear
human
statement,
beings in
yeah.
regard to that, I'm talking about the animals. I'm talking about the procreation of animals. There's
There may not be. I don't know.
right, which you would think either A, he's created a new heaven and new earth that's so big that can go on perpetually with multiplication and no death, or it has to end. They have to stop procreating at some
I would
level.
think they'd have to stop
Or the animals
the inference.
or the death of an animal isn't the same as the death of a human being.
You could. There's certainly a distinction between, in the Hebrew text, we are living creatures, animals are living creatures. Animals also are chayim nefesh, which we would translate nefesh as soul. So animals have souls to them. They have personality. They have all of these kinds of, you can
Well, that's
communicate with animals. Animals can communicate back.
I didn't know
Most
the Hebrews
certainly.
thought that.
The only difference between us and humans and animals is not flesh, basar. They also have basar or sarks. The only really difference between is we're imago Dei. We're or imago Dei. We're image of God. That's the difference.
Right.
Everything else, we got claws,
yeah.
we got hair, eyesight, smell. We're
Don't you think it's
Bipedal.
fascinating that?
kangaroos are bipedal.
Don't you think it's fascinating that most animals that are prey have their eyes
Yeah.
focused sideways, like on the sides of their heads, but most animals who are predators have peripheral vision, but their eyes are in front. Isn't that bizarre?
Yeah.
Well, it's not bizarre. It's practical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it
Most
is-
animal
So we're-
design is just very practical. I think a shark, they got to see out of both sides. That'd be odd, wouldn't it, to be able to see out of the side of your head?
It would be.
That would be,
And to be constantly moving, if they stop moving, they die.
yeah.
Oh, the sharks? Yeah. Yeah, that is.
And then the hammerhead shark with his eyes. That'd be really
Have you ever
odd.
seen one in person?
Yes.
I went scuba diving and saw one. I was
Oh. They're
neat.
terrified.
I thought you were talking about like.
It was a little
No, when I was in eighth
this
grade,
was a
I
little
went.
one.
No, it was bizarre to see one. Like you're thinking, that is.
We would snorkel a lot in Pensacola, and there was black tip and white tip shark. They're all around when you go in the oceans. People don't know. Sharks are all around you. They don't bother you.
Yeah, hammerhead's a big boy though.
And they're pretty aggressive.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they're aggressive.
Also saw a barracuda on that particular trip.
I saw
You
saw- it was a Heart album and it had Barracuda on it. I saw
Yeah. Somebody dropped it in the ocean. Weird.
I saw it on the bottom. It's right there.
so all of these things that that we're talking about from the full preterist perspective, to you especially, and to probably I would say most of Christendom, the viewpoint of what the new heaven and new earth looks incredibly bleak, and in fact disgusts a lot of people because it doesn't look like the peace and harmony and utopia. Like, why would Christ die just for these things to continue going on as they go on?
It's
right?
not a particularly attractive carrot on the end of that exact stick.
Yeah.
Right.
And
And,
that's
then,
what-
and for that, I've been told that I'm fleshly minded, and I'm like, that's not.
I mean, that's not what I'm saying.
So I've traveled to hundreds of churches, and after I've left Full Preterism, hundreds of churches, met thousands of churchgoers and stuff locally and throughout Indiana, and none of them have heard of this Full Preter. And so I bring it up to them, and they're just, you can pick the jaw off of the floor because it's
Yeah,
so.
Probably.
Well, why would God do just to go to heaven? That's great, but I'd like him to heal this body that I'm currently racked with cancer with.
I'm willing to bet that you're not
Can
the
he get
best
the victory
salesman
over
for
this?
preterism.
What?
Yeah, no, right.
Yeah, I said I'm willing
Right.
to bet you're not the best salesman for preterism.
No. So it's things like that. So I pray. Jesus said, "Whatsoever you ask, I will give to you in my Father's name." Whatsoever you ask. So I've prayed, for cancer patients, and they died of cancer a week later. So, but by his stripes we shall be healed. These are followers of the Lord. Resurrection. That prayer is going to be answered. By his stripes we will be healed. All my prayers, those will be answered. Either in this life they get healed, but one way or the other, by his stripes we will be healed. He died for the world. God so loved the world. So it's geared towards that because we live in the world.
So forgive my ignorance, and I say that kind of jokingly, but in the Bible, doesn't it? And you'll have to tell me. I don't always have the addresses of the verses I'm
That's
trying
fine.
to come up with.
That's all new recent invention anyway.
Doesn't the Bible speak on the earth being healed?
Sure,
From its
the
current
restoration
sense-
of all
restoration
things.
of all
This is
things.
Jewish, too, very firmly Jewish.
It's Old Testament.
Yes.
So I'm in the Old Testament trying to find this verse.
Jewish thinking had an idea that Yahweh would bring and Mashiach would come and then make all things right. Justice would be established on earth and the wicked would be done away with. This is apocalyptic. This is Enoch book. They all Dead Sea Scrolls you read through, and the sons of light, or God's going to come with the sons of light and the sons of wickedness and dark will all be dispelled, and then there will be a glorious, shiny place where all the righteous shine as stars in heaven, and injustice will be done away with once and for all. Thank God. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. And so that provides hope in the midst of evil is triumphing.
It seems like it.
Yeah, it's like this is temporary. Okay, so I can count it all joy, brothers. Rejoice, and again I say rejoice, even though my hands are locked up on a prison Roman wall. Momentary sufferings. Our momentary sufferings are nothing to be compared with that which is coming in glory. So that's what it gives him hope.
Sure. I wanted to read something because I know you're going to, we'll get into this. And by the way, we won't touch this on this episode, but in the next episode, I want to talk about what you just said, which was the hope of Paul, which was, we'll get into at hand and the imminency. I want to definitely get into that because that's something that I know that you've wrestled with as well, and came to the conclusion that you're at today. So in Revelation, I want to talk about this subject here. If it's okay with you guys, I'm going to read out of the NASB, and I'm going to read Revelations 21, and I'm going to read probably all of 21, if that's okay with you guys. And you guys tell me when you're ready.
Is this Revelation?
Revelation 21? I'm in the NASB. Everybody tell me when you're ready. And you and I might split this up, Sarita, because I think I'm going to read all the way down to like verse 9, and I'll let you read.
So you want me to be in the NASB?
Yeah, can you?
I can.
Okay. Just tell me when you're ready.
Is it the NSB 2020?
Yeah, NASB 2020.
Okay, go.
Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth passed away, and there is no longer any sea. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is among the people, and he will dwell among them, and they shall be his people, and God himself will be among them. And he will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there will no longer be any death. There will no longer be any mourning, or crying, or pain. The first things have passed away. And he who sits on the throne said, Behold, I am making all things new. And he said, Write, for these words are faithful and true. Then he said to me, It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give water to the one who thirsts from the spring of the water of life without cost. The one who overcomes will inherit these things, and I will be his God, and he will be my son. But for the cowardly and unbelieving and abominable and murderers and sexually immoral persons and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars, their part will be in the lake that burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls, full of the 7 last plagues, came and spoke with me, saying, Come here, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb.
And he carried me away in the Spirit to a great and high mountain, and showed me the holy city, Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, having the glory of God. Her brilliance was like a very valuable stone, like a stone of crystal clear jasper. It had a great and high wall with 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels. And names were written on the gates, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the sons of Israel. There were 3 gates on the east, 3 gates on the north, 3 gates on the south, and 3 gates on the west. And the wall of the city had 12 foundation stones, and on them were the 12 names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. The one who spoke with me had a gold measuring rod to measure the city, its gates, and its wall. The city is laid out as a square, and its length is as great as its width. And he measured the city with the rod, 12,000 stadia. Its length, width, and height are equal. And he measured its wall, 144 cubits, by human measurements, which are also angelic measurements. The material of the wall was jasper, and the city was like pure gold, like clear glass. The foundation stones of the city wall were decorated with every kind of precious stone. The first foundation stone was jasper, the second sapphire, the third chalcedony, the fourth emerald, the fifth sardonyx, the sixth sardius, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th chrysoprase, the 11th jacinth, the 12th amethyst. And the 12 gates were 12 pearls. Each one of the gates was a single pearl. And the street of the city was pure gold, like transparent glass. I saw no temple in it, for the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. And the city has no need of sun or moon to shine on it, for the glory of the Lord has illuminated it. And its lamp is the Lamb. The nations will walk by its light, and the kings of the earth will bring their glory into it. In the daytime, for there will be no night there, its gates will never be closed. And they will bring the glory and the honor of the nations into it, and nothing unclean, and no one who practices abomination and lying shall ever come into it, but only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life.
Thank you.
I see you gave me the hardest part.
I did.
Thanks.
Yeah, because you're a great reader and you know how to say those words like chalcedony.
Chalcedony and sardonyx.
Is that even how you pronounce it? Is it chalcedony?
Is it?
Or is it chalcedony?
I went with Chaucer.
I don't know.
I went with Chaucer.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to give anything like that to me because he knows how much time I'll have to spend editing it so that other people can understand it.
And we'll let Rick read it, and he'll just truck through. He'll say whatever it is.
Blah, blah, blah.
He'll be like, Kahal Sadahonahai, right?
Speaking in tongue.
Reading in tongue.
The reason why I wanted to read it is because obviously we can't just read Revelation and take it at face value. We do understand that these are symbols that come from the Tanakh that that John is weaving together through this testimony of Jesus Christ in regard to this thing that must shortly come to pass. And we're going to get into at hand in the next episode, not this one. But the reason that I bring it is because of what it says that's happening at the new heaven and new earth and what will not be allowed to enter in it. And that to me is striking. And that's one of the verses of scripture that has always given me pause.
Right.
Do you understand where I'm going with this? That for me as a person, this isn't about full preterism. This is about me as a person who is looking to the future of what the new heaven and the new earth is going to be, or what it is. If it is in fact future to me versus that I'm living in it. Either
Right.
way we look at it, whether it's future or it's present, it's still the same. Do you understand?
Right.
Okay, so my thought process, kind of where it got stuck in my mind, was that there were things that were present that were not able to be in it. And so I started asking myself this question last night. I read, instead of reading your whole book, I read half of it, and then I started reading this. Something that I wanted to know that you might know from your Hebraic studies. Is this another one of those scenarios? Have I got something mixed up here in this word? I know that this book was written in Greek. I understand that. High Greek, Koine Greek. But it's obvious that the writer of this letter is deeply Hebrew.
Yeah.
Or at least he knows the Tanakh tremendously well.
I think it's the Apostle John. Yeah.
Okay, so he knows it from this perspective, and it's being written in Greek. But much like the pluperfect of Adam, when it states that there are things that will not be allowed to be inside it, does that mean because they're not there? Or is he just saying all of these things won't be there? Or is he saying that those things are there and they won't be allowed in?
Yeah, won't be there, not allowed in.
But are they there?
They're not there. Yeah.
See, I see it as that they are, because it's the way that it's stating it. That's where my head is. And so when I read that, Dr. Frost,
That water.
here, I'll read it again.
That what is there? It's Kalkados, right?
Because-
by the way,
Chalcados?
yeah, the
Or
Greek.
Chalcedony?
We say,
So it should have been Chalcedony.
Chalcedony. But
Well,
it's
Chalcedony?
that's
Oh.
Greek. We say C. We'll put an S sounding on our C's.
It's like we're going to be, it's like what we're going to be
And cha.
doing is
on the
eating
CH.
bologna and cheese for lunch.
Right. And you said it right. You
What
said
a
all
bunch of
it.
bologna.
Chalcedony. Well, I went with Chaucer.
It's English.
author.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So, all right. So listen here in verse 24. Well, let me say it again. Number 23, verse 23. And the city has no need of the sun or of the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God has illuminated it, and its lamp is the Lamb. It sounds amazingly like prior to day 4 in creation.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? So
Definitely.
the nations will walk by its light, and the kings of the earth will bring their glory into it.
That's very critical. Into it.
Right. In the daytime, for there will be no night there.
Right.
Its gates will never be closed.
Right.
It's not a closed society.
Nope.
It's open.
Well,
And they will bring the glory and the honor of the nations into it, and nothing unclean and no one who practices abomination and lying shall ever come into it, but only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. In other words, there are people there whose names are not written in the Lamb's book of life who will never enter into it. And the gates are always remaining open because there are always something coming into it. At this stage in Revelation 21 is what I'm saying. Okay?
Right.
So what I want to do now is I want to go on to Revelation 22.
I was hoping you would go there.
Right, because this is what's going to solve the problem possibly, but I think, and by say solving problems, I'm talking about whether it's future or present. It doesn't matter to me. What I'm trying to get at is what this actually is. I'm going to read it, starting with verse 1. And he showed me a river of the water of life, clear as crystal, coming from the throne of God and from the Lamb in the middle of its street. On either side of the river was the tree of life, bearing 12 kinds of fruit, yielding its fruit every month, and the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. And by the way, this is a very precious thing to me as well, Dr. Frost. This is precious to me as well. There will no longer be any curse. And the throne of God and of the Lamb will be in it. And his bond servants will serve him, and they will see his face, which I so long for. and his name will be on their foreheads. And there will no longer be any night, and they will not have need of the light or of a lamp, nor the light of the sun. This is repeating what we just saw in
Yep,
21. Because the Lord God will illuminate them, and they will reign forever and ever. And he said to me, these words are faithful and true. And the Lord, the God of the spirits of the prophets, sent his angel to show his bondservants the things which must soon take place. And behold, I am coming quickly. Blessed is the one who keeps the words of the prophecy of this book. I, John, am the one who heard and saw these things, and when I heard and saw them, I fell down to worship at the feet of the angel who showed me these things. And he said to me, do not do that. I am a fellow servant of yours and of your brothers the prophets and of those who keep the words of this book. Worship God. And he said to me, do not seal up the words of the prophecy of this book, for the time is near. Let the one who does wrong still do wrong, and the one who is filthy still be filthy. And let the one who is righteous still practice righteousness, and the one who is holy still keep himself holy. Behold, I am coming quickly, and my reward is with me, to reward each one as his work deserves. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Blessed are those who wash their robes, so that they will have the right to the tree of life, and may enter the city by the gates. Outside are the dogs, the sorcerers, the sexually immoral persons, the murderers, the idolaters, and everyone who loves and practices lying. I, Jesus, have sent my angel to testify to you of these things for the churches. I am the root and the descendant of David, the bright morning star. The Spirit and the bride say, come. And let the one who hears say, come. And let the one who is thirsty come. Let the one who desires take the water of life without cost. I testify to everyone who hears the words of the prophecy of this book. If anyone adds to them, God will add to him the plagues that are written in this book. And if anyone takes away from the words of the book of this prophecy, God will take away his part from the tree of life and from the holy city which are written in this book. He who testifies to these things says, yes, I am coming quickly. Amen. Come, Lord Jesus. The grace of the Lord Jesus be with all. Amen.
Can I say here real quick before you go?
Yeah.
When you were just reading that, and I've read this before, I've read both 21 and 22 before, several times. But I've never read it after we read Genesis 1 and 2 with what we were talking about with Genesis 1 and 2 in a previous conversation. Does anybody find that it kind of mimics Genesis 1 and 2 and Revelation 21 and 20?
Staple scholarship.
Oh, gosh. Well, I didn't know that. So
Yeah.
look at me being
Look
a
at
scholar.
you being a scholar, sucker.
That's
It is.
No, but like the way
you can't fail to see the
the Genesis 1 was so particular about this happened on this day and this happened and it was good, which means in Hebrew it is finished. It is complete. It is good. We think of good as in like, oh, he's such a good boy. But I think, at least the Hebrew I've read, it's the same utterance that Jesus made on the cross. It is good. It is complete. It is finished. Right? Is that what he's saying here? It mimics Genesis 1 and 2. Is that accurate?
Yeah, good. Good,
I wouldn't
good, yeah,
say-
good as in completeness,
Yes.
as opposed to
Yes, I realized I was speaking to you off the microphone. My bad.
yeah. You're a little. That's fine.
Sorry.
You will be. All right, I'll stop now.
You might
I
have to
won't
come-
say anything.
You don't want to say anything?
Well, what
Am
on
I
that?
wrong? I mean, if I'm wrong, I want to know I'm wrong.
It's not the same. It's not the same idiom that's being
Oh,
used. They're all
okay.
there are three different idioms that are being used there. So
Oh, the three
I wouldn't
different.
say
It
if
is
one could
good. It
say
is finished,
good.
and it is finished back here. Are three different.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Hayatov would just be, it's good. You know, what I've made here is good. So he's just pronouncing it good. There's words for best and better. It's not the best. It's good. It's not the best.
Yeah.
You mean in Genesis 1? That's what he's saying.
It's good.
And then when he says it's very good, it's better.
Better, not the best.
And then Jesus is the best.
He is the best.
Okay, I love that. Okay, I'm glad I'm wrong. I'm glad you said something.
That's why we know in the beginning of Genesis,
Then I was wrong, Rick, and I'll
he's
admit that to
beginning.
you as well.
It's
I
a
said that.
beginning, and so John
Wrong
is now
about what?
here seeing the
Wrong
end.
about what?
We talked about this, the good, the
She's-
definition.
Good meaning
we had
completion in that context.
and
Right,
I
right,
was
right.
wrong. So
And
I'm
that
wrong.
idea is attached to that. Yeah, it's good. Good,
Sam,
good enough.
Dr. Frost, I appreciate you making me look good. Now, if you guys would, I want to ask you one last thing. I want to read, and it's in John chapter 11, if you don't mind. Everybody knows John chapter 11. It is my favorite chapter of the entire Bible. And because of that, and because of my desire for the resurrection that we are describing, and what we see as past versus what is present or what is future, this is where it is for me as a human being right now in my brain on my path. I do not claim the path of every other man, woman, or child on this planet. I can only claim mine. I believe that Jesus Christ was a real human being. I believe he walked on this earth. I believe he was, in fact, the Son of God. I believe that he went to the cross and that he was crucified, that he was buried, and that he was resurrected. And by saying so, I acknowledge that he also spent 40 days on this earth, and from that point, he ascended to the right hand of the Father. I believe that is where he is now. And so in chapter 11, we know the story. We know that Jesus on purpose waits. Lazarus is sick, and he waits. Martha and Mary call on him. Please come. He waits. We know the song 4 days late. You ever heard the song, Dr. Frost? When he's 4 days late,
No.
he's still on time.
No.
Because when he's 4 days late, he's still on time. It's a good song. Look it up. So then,
I will. Yes, sir.
how about I?
Is that an order?
It is. It's a command.
Should be from your charismatic days.
So, all right. Whenever Martha first sees Jesus, so then, verse 20, so then Martha, when she heard that Jesus was coming, went to meet him. But Mary stayed in the house. Martha then said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise from the dead. Martha said to him, I know that he will rise in the resurrection on the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. I want to repeat that. I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even if he dies. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? She said to him, Yes, Lord, I have come to believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, and he who comes into the world. I want to stop there, and I wanted to pick your brain on this, Dr. Frost. I am the resurrection and the life. This is the noun. Am I right? The resurrection is a noun here.
Ego eimi anastasis. So
Yes.
He's there. He's it's very emphatic. So, but it is the noun.
It is the noun version of resurrection.
Ki zoein. So I am the
Yeah,
resurrection.
so he is the acting one, but this is the descriptor of what this is. He is the actual resurrection, is what he's saying, and he is also the life.
Yeah,
right. It's also the noun.
he's the definer of it and the giver of it.
That's exactly right. Okay, so when he goes on to say this, and I'm asking you for help on this, okay? Because you have a differing view, and I know you do, and so I'm asking for help. The one who believes in me will live, even if he dies.
Yeah, he adds the qualifier, apothene. So that's aorist. So he's there saying the inevitability of death. He who believes in me, even though he dies.
Yes.
Which you're going to, by the way.
Yes.
He will live. That's a future tense.
Uh-huh.
He will live.
But then in 26, he says, and everyone who lives and believes in me will never die.
Now, notice there he's doing, so the first thing he says in 25, hapastuin, so there he's using a typical participle.
Are you reading this in the Greek?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
I wish
there
I
he's-
could do that so bad.
There he's, the one who believes in me, or whosoever believes, the one believing in me, even though he dies, he will live. So you have believe and live.
Yes.
And then you have in 26, live, believe. So you see what he's switching.
Uh-huh.
And
Is
that's
this-
a
is this
common
the-
way of doing it. That means pay attention. So when is the living? Well, after you die, you future tense, you will live. That's resurrection. And the one who will live, the living one, the participle, that's describing the one who will live, and or who is the one believing, which is prior to the living. You got to believe before you live.
Yes.
It's the believing that brings the living. Even though you die, which you will live, and you will not ever die.
Mm-hmm.
You're incapable of dying.
Yes.
You'll never die again. Why? Because you have been raised after you have died. That's what he's saying there.
Mm-hmm.
And she affirms this. I know my brother will live again in the resurrection in the last day. So that's John 6. That's going back to John 6. Because John's the only one that uses that phrase, in the last day.
Right.
So she's affirming the doctrine of resurrection of the dead. I know that Lazarus will live in the resurrection of the dead in the last day. I just want you to raise him back right now, temporarily back to me, because I miss him.
Mm-hmm.
That's what she's asking. And Jesus, and I know you're the coming when you can do all things. You can give me this moment.
Right.
I'd like to see my brother again.
Yeah.
Can you do that
just
for
didn't
me?
she just didn't believe that he could raise him from the dead at that moment.
She knew he could.
Well, she
And
knew he could at the
that
last day, but not right then.
He could even prevent him from dying.
Well, that's why she wanted him there before he died. That's what she
But
was
now
upset
that he's
about.
dead, can you bring him back?
I don't think she meant right then.
Well,
She didn't believe that. Remember,
She comes-
he is convincing her of this. She did
she
not
comes
believe
to
that.
him and says, if my brother if you had been here, my brother would not have died.
That's what she did know.
Because she knew
But even then, I know that you will resurrect him at the last day. That's what she believed.
That's
she
her
didn't believe
doctrine.
that he could resurrect him then.
Well, it
That was-
wouldn't matter one way or the other whether she did or she didn't. She's affirming doctrine of resurrection of the dead.
No, I'm fine with that. Of course she is. That's not
apart,
my point.
That's apart from any miracle Jesus is going to perform right now. In other words, if he raised Lazarus from the dead, which he did, that's not the resurrection of the dead in the last day.
No.
So they're
100%.
So they're separate.
No, I agree
These
with
are
you on that
separate.
one.
Right.
So the distinction of when is not important to me at this juncture.
The only reason I bring that up is because full preterists say, well, in the last day is the last day of your life, and then you get your new body when you die. And I'm like, that's impossible here.
Right.
There's no way Martha was thinking that complicated.
Again,
it's not
look at
Second Temple Judaism. They wouldn't
Jesus'
have had those
response
thoughts.
to her is where I think this is coming from. Whether I agree with it or I don't, I think that's why I was asking you about when he said about the living. It's
Yeah.
almost like there's a switch that happens here. There's a place, whether it's the age and the age to come switch, like this moment within these words, it's like Jesus is speaking, like you just said. Though he die, he will live, and when he is living, he will never die. You're saying that
Yep.
there is the place that he's going to go, right? He's going to once
Well,
he is in the resurrection, he'll never die. From
It's
that
interesting because the anastasis, that Greek word is standing again. So anastasis, and it's with the article. So the resurrection, that's anastasis, or standing again.
Yes.
You will stand again. And the living here that is being referred to is connected to that. So you're going to die and you're going to live again. You're going to stand again.
point.
You're going to live again. And those that stand again and live again in the resurrection in the last day, they will not ever succumb to death ever again, or there shall be no more death. And John, Revelation 21,
Right.
he's saying the same thing here. There's no more death.
So yes.
So Jesus dies, Romans 6, Jesus dies. He's been raised from the dead. And Paul says, and he cannot ever die ever again, for death no longer has mastery over him. That's how I'm going to be.
Right.
I'm not there yet because I'm going to die.
Mhm.
But when I'm raised again from the dead in immortality, I will never die ever again.
Well, yeah, and so
Like
in the
him.
gospel, right? Like in the Gospel of John, I think this is where the distinctions are. I think this is where my brain starts to get scattered. Okay, my brain starts to scatter whenever we start talking about the physical versus the spiritual, and I'm beginning to see now that the major differences that we have are the spiritual and the physical.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And that's really
Yeah.
where it's at. And I think if
Definitely.
if you take a spiritual angle at this, if it becomes like at the death in the death in the garden was a spiritual death, not a physical death, then you start splitting hairs now, and then we start going down through the annals of history, and we get to this place now where suddenly Jesus is saying, you must be born again. This is not a physical thing that he's asking. This is a spiritual thing. And so this is not Gnosticism to talk about the spirit born, the spirit birth of things.
Oh no, it's
right?
only Gnosticism when you radically dualize and separate the two so that the twain shall never meet. That's
and I
Gnosticism.
believe and with Gnosticism, is that also a Greek thing versus a Hebrew thing?
They were strict dualists. So Plato believed that the body was basically a meat sack until you die, and then you get rid of this god-awful meat
so
sack.
God, who had the Hebrews, decided to use the meat sack people to write this stuff down. And I love the language that he used.
Well, that's just the language of
No, I
Greek.
understand
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
No, I understand. But the philosophy that was within these people, they're living in a world where this philosophy is reality.
The
This-
Greeks were. John wasn't. The guy who wrote this gospel here wasn't. He's
Right.
Hebrew.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't written in Hebrew. It was written in Greek.
Yeah. He's one professor, he's a Hebrew writing in Greek.
Yes.
That's why his New Testament vocabulary is so closely related to the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Hebrew scriptures, 3rd century to 1st century BCE. So, because these are Paul's Aramaic Hebrew, so his Greek is tortured in some places, and we call these Hebraisms. We explain them away as linguists as Hebraisms because this is just not good Greek. But may I take everything? I get your order. Did I get your order okay?
Yeah.
I can understand your English is very broken. You're from Mexico?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's going on a lot with Paul's Greek. It's broken,
Paul versus John.
but he's Hebrew.
Mhm.
Well, John's the same way.
Right.
So it's
A Hebrew mind using the Greek language.
they're Aramaic Hebrew. That's their native tongue. So if I started speaking my Spanish, the Spanish person would spot it in a million years, thinking you're not from here, are you?
Yeah.
Spanish is a little rusty. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Is that a Southern dialect or a Northern dialect?
Right.
See, they would spot all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
And these aren't native Greeks. John's not native Greek.
So if we take by that, and I want to finish this episode right here.
But it doesn't matter. That's just linguistic.
No, of course. No, yeah. It really doesn't on the philosophy of it. What I meant is that it's interesting that God used that language with a group that split,
It's the lingua
unlike
franca.
the Hebrews.
It was like English is today. You can go to China and there's
Yeah,
English, McDonald's in English.
Yep.
You know,
there are.
why English?
I've been there. Yeah.
Yeah. Why do they have English? Well, it's the international. It's the
So
everyone. The Latins,
The language
they
of
loved
money.
they loved Greek
Yeah.
because you could do so much with it. There's just so many expressive ways.
That
you
and
could
they
do with
conquered
it.
the world and became the language
And
of the world.
they happened to. They had a guy named Alexander.
they
that-
taught English at the end of a sword.
Aristotle, Plato, all
That's
of the
exactly right.
philosophers,
Well-
all of the greats were Greek.
Yeah.
Not English. I'm sorry. Wrong language. but-
Yeah. So I guess we'll finish this episode here, and I want to get into the next one where that kind of leads into the at hand and the time statements that I know that you don't put a lot of stake into them necessarily, and we'll get to that. But I wanted to, and I definitely want to broach the topic of what we just entered into a little bit about the spirit versus the physical, and the understanding that a Hebrew would have.
Yeah.
When they read this versus the understanding that our modern English minds think in America.
Okay.
I want to touch on that. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I can't believe
Wasting
you came all the
your
way
time.
down from Indiana, man. That's so nice. Yeah.
I like Indiana.
Rick Carter, thanks for being here. Andy,
I'm doing some learning.
yeah, doing some learning. Sarita,
learning.
thanks for bringing me the water.
Yeah, you betcha.
Thank you for being here.
All that city learning.
Yeah, man. Anybody else?
Can't have that.
Book
Get
learning.
that learning away.
It's like, do you guguys remember that old picante sauce?
Oh,
Paste picante?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember those? do you
New
remember-
York City.
Get a rope.
Oh, Facebook. Facebook.
Paste Picani. I don't know if they do that anymore.
Their
Get a
commercial
rope.
was like, our salsa is made in a factory that's not in New York City.
Yeah.
Oh my God, so good! What a good commercial.
Are you familiar with the comedian John Mulaney?
Oh God, he's so funny.
Oh, this
Man,
guy
he's
is one of the
really
funniest people
Yeah.
in the world. And he goes, once I called on my landline to the Blockbuster Video. That was a very old-fashioned sentence, but it was very reality for me. Anyway, well, thanks everybody for being here, and we're going to continue these Dr. Sam Frost Fridays until we get through it. So I hope that you stick in. Be sure to send all the comments, mail it to Giraffe Studio. Any complaints that you have,
Oh Lord, no!
To Animal
I
Farm.
guarantee I won't read them.
right? Yeah.
I promise.
If you're interested in the works of Dr. Frost, we will have the links in each paragraph on this podcast that you can go where you can find his books, you can find his blog, and any information that you want in order to read some of his work. All right. We will talk to you guys again next time on the Burros of Berea. Peace out.
Bye, y'all.
Hey guys, this is Rick from the Burros of Berea. Do you know how much blood, sweat, and tears it takes to make a podcast? None. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't cost a lot. And so if you guys don't mind, if anybody would like to give to help us with these episodes, it would be great. We'll put out even more content. And if you go to our Patreon page, just search for the Burros of Berea, you'll get extra notes, extra episodes, and it's pretty much free. $1 gets you a lot. Thanks, guys.
Part-time at a hardware store, local hardware store. But most of my time is focused on our congregation, people in the community around local.
And are
I
you
wish more
are you a
churches
head pastor?
stayed local.
Are you a head pastor? There?
No, Alan McCrane is. And so I'm going in through their denomination, but I've been ordained through another. So I can do the sacraments and all that kind of stuff. And as a chaplain too, I can do all of that. So I'm a chaplain with the Henry County Sheriff's Department,
Oh, okay.
certified and all that kind of good stuff.
You certifiable?
Certified and certifiable.
Yeah, we're going to fire off in 2 minutes, so you can go ahead whenever you want to get us rolling.
But my doctorate's work and then writing, researching, and all
We
that
are
stuff.
rolling?
So.
Okay.
So, but mainly focused on the local community, those locally that need
Yeah.
service help.
So, do you know any jokes?
Me, how many full preterists does it take to screw in a light bulb?
Ooh, I love it.
I can't wait. How many?
None, because it's already screwed in.
Nice.
That's a good one.
That was lame.
That is good.
You got any better ones?
No.
Oh, come on. You got any more jokes?
Yeah.
That's all you got?
Catholic, a Baptist, and a prostitute walk into the bar. No, I don't.
That sounds like a sort of an interesting joke.
Yeah, it did. It did. I was looking forward to that.
Those
trying to
aren't
find-
buoys.
Those aren't what?
Those aren't buoys.
That's the punchline. A friend and I he's a comedian. We just started coming up with punchlines. We don't know the joke. We thought, let's come up with punchlines. We'll just have punchlines. Those aren't buoys. You could figure out the joke.
Some of those are the best. I love those. Man.